So I figured I would do a little channel update because of the way that my schedule falls and how I usually do one video every 2 days, or at least I strive to. It just worked out that this time around, the day that I would normally release a video would actually turn out to be Christmas Day. And considering the fact that I figured most people probably won't have the time during the day, what with family stuff going on and everyone tends to be very busy, especially on the main days of Christmas, they probably wouldn't have the time to watch like an hour or so replay on one of the Third Age Reforged, well, on Third Age Reforged or on something like Silmarillion Total War. So I figured I'd spare people the obligation of trying to do that and instead just take the opportunity to do a channel update, because there are a few things that I figured would need sort of clearing up as we move into the new year, and some of the things that I'm maybe trying to do in the near future, as well as sort of my overall plans for trying to organise my channel a little bit more than I have done up till this point. It still works just fine. It's only going to be very minor things, and really it's much of a muchness really. Obviously, it's not going to impact most people here, to be honest with you. Like, mostly my content is going to stay the same. It's just incidental things that I'm going to be going through here, but they're still worth going through. And obviously this isn't going to be a particularly long video. It's going to be quite a sort of chilled out affair. So we'll get right into it, I think. Obviously, the Third Age submods are still going to be the primary source of my channel's content going forward. The vast bulk of it is going to be that. But it's not just going to be Reforged going forward, of course, because now, as of Christmas Eve, the Silmarillion Total War Open Alpha has begun, which of course means the likelihood of me doing even more Silmarillion content goes up fairly substantially, which I think is a good thing, because to be frank, I think that the Silmarillion submod has been excellently developed thus far, even though it's still in its early stages, and I greatly look forward to doing even more content on it. And there's a very loud motorbike right outside the window. Nonetheless, yeah, Silmarillion, I hope to do much more content of that going forward. In an ideal world, I would honestly want to do alternating between Silmarillion and Reforged each battle. I'm not sure whether there'll be enough Silmarillion content to do quite that level just yet. There may be, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, hopefully we can sort of alternate between the two. Because I think that would be how it would work in an ideal world, of course. And hopefully as well, at some point in the new year, I'm not sure how far away it still is, but hopefully we'll get to see the Reforged hotfix come in at some stage as well. Purely because there are several... It's not so much the instability, I think that's just something which I'm going to have to deal with. But there are several aspects of the game that aren't actually working at the moment, in particular the whole siege battle thing, where there's several siege settlements that aren't actually working. Those are the ones that I'd really like to show, because in spite of the fact that it's over a year old technically at this point, the map, I've still not shown Minas Ithil, and I would really like to at some stage, but obviously at the moment it's not quite working, so hopefully we'll get to see that in the new year as well. But yeah, like, I will, I think, be moving towards alternating between a Silmarillion battle and a Reforged battle, and sort of going in that sort of cyclical fashion, as I do a video every 2 days, or at least I try to. Obviously with the university schedule being what it is, especially at the sharp end when we get to sort of May and sort of the summer months where I'm going to be doing my dissertation, I may have to sort of scale back to one video every 3 days, but that's still a little ways off, to be fair, so that's not something we have to concern ourselves with initially. Now, the other thing as well, that in my previous channel update I did tentatively toy with the idea of streaming. Now, there are a couple of roadblocks that I have run into with that. The first is just learning how to do it. It seems like a bit of a pain in the arse, to be honest with you, and it seems like more of a pain in the arse than I would be willing to put up with for just a couple of sort of one-off streaming sessions, because to be quite frank, I don't think I would be able to make a regular thing of streaming in the way that would be ideal. It's one of those things where if you really want to get into streaming, I feel as though you need to do it on the regular. At least I would be wanting to do one every week, and it's not the sort of thing that I believe I can commit to in the long term. Again, it's the sort of thing that I have been toying with the idea of doing, but it's just a matter of setting aside enough time to actually get everything set up and doing it. And even then, I'm not entirely sure that my internet would actually be able to withstand it either. Like, my internet's okay, but it's not, maybe not to the sort of level where I would trust it with handling a stream. But yeah, it's one of those things that I'm still not entirely sold on. Like, I feel as though if I could set it up, I would probably give it a go a couple of times. But again, it's one of those things where I need to find the willpower to actually do that. you know, and I have a kind of if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality with regards to my channel, where I seem to have something which is sort of kind of works for the time being, so I'm sticking to it. But I do want to, but it's finding the time to do it. And obviously over Christmas is not really the ideal time to be trying to learn how to do that, because there's so much going on with regards to family stuff and people visiting and going around to various places, that there isn't really the time to do it then. And as soon as January starts as well, I'll be getting back into the swing of things with regards to my university work. So again, it's finding the time. I might be able to do it sort of getting towards the other side of January, so you know, late January, early February, I might be able to find the time to start to learn how to do the streaming thing and setting everything up. But for the time being, at the very least, I was intending to do it over the winter break, but as it turns out, like, I kind of overestimated the amount of time I would have, so unfortunately that probably won't be happening at the moment. But I do want to do it in the future. It's just a case of, you know, setting everything up and finding the time to do that, as I said. The other thing as well is the hardware stuff. Now, one of the things that obviously that people have asked me for several times is like a face reveal or stuff like that, you know, and to be, you know, I do need sort of new hardware in some aspects. Like my PC is fine, but I do need to buy some new hardware, and obviously I would need to buy a webcam as well if I was going to do the whole face thing. But obviously the issue with that is one of cost. Like when you're at university, money is not the sort of thing that you can throw around frivolously on these sort of things. So I would need to be quite careful with how I would buy stuff. Now this is the sort of thing that maybe I would consider setting up some sort of donation thing for, and as soon as I sort of reach the amount of money that I needed just to buy like a webcam and a couple of other sort of miscellaneous parts, then I would just sort of shut it off, because it's not a huge amount of money, but it's still not the sort of thing that I can go out and spend on just willy-nilly like that. So possibly, again, this is another thing that I was toying with, the idea of setting up some sort of donation thing, but that was more in the face of the potential of having to turn off the adverts on my videos. That's not something which I think I have to worry about at this point, so I sort of cooled off on that idea. But maybe it would be a decent idea just to set up some sort of donation thing, because obviously it would only be a small amount. I'm not sort of deluding myself thinking otherwise, but it would certainly help out in sort of buying some sort of smaller pieces of hardware like webcams and the like, to sort of try and augment my the quality of my videos, which I am sort of happy with at the moment considering the kind of content that I make. But I would also like to push the envelope out a little bit further and maybe make things a little bit better in those regards. But yeah, obviously it all comes down to money in the end and what's viable and what's not. So possibly, again, that's the sort of thing that I would only really consider doing in the new year anyway, so it's not the sort of thing which will kick in immediately. I would rather get my January deadlines out of the way first and then start wondering about these things. But yeah, the possibility of setting up something like, I don't know, Patreon or something does exist, if only to sort of try and cover the costs of what I would be doing to try and maintain my channel at the very least. But yeah, it's not likely to be all that much, to be honest with you. It's not like I'm trying to build like a whole new PC. Like I know Scouts of Entertainment is sort of raising money to try and build a whole new system, which good on him, because you know PCs are very expensive. So he's definitely taking his rig seriously, which is good to see. Obviously, it's not a cheap hobby by any means when you get into it at the sharp end gaming, but yeah, I hope that he can raise the money to buy a whole new system. I don't think I need that much, to be fair, but hopefully we can carry on with that. The other thing as well that I'm going to mention just at the end here is there is sort of a one-off thing that I was intending on doing just past the turn of the new year. So this is the sort of thing which, if it does happen, will come into effect pretty quickly. I was thinking of just doing a little games/game developers of the decade thing, because obviously it is the end of the decade now. We're getting to 2020. So it's the only chance we're really going to get to do this sort of thing. Just having a little look back at how gaming has gone in the past 10 years, and just going through some of my games of the decade, some of my game developers of the decade, and of course the inverse of that, some of the most disappointing games and developers of the decade as well. Because to be honest with you, the disappointment list is probably has a significant amount of length to it in comparison to the stuff that I was actually enjoyed without any sort of strings attached. But yeah, this is the sort of thing which I have been toying with the idea of doing, and I feel as though you know, my channel did actually gain traction by doing like top 10s and top 5s in the first place. So I feel as though this would be sort of coming full circle somewhat, albeit in a completely different topic. This will be much more general, of course. But yeah, this is the sort of thing which I think I will do, to be honest with you, because it's not as if it needs a huge amount doing on my part. All I really need to do is sort of go through my lists and then relay them. But we'll see. Like, it's the sort of thing where, again, like, it's easier said than done. Like, it's all well and good me saying this now, but obviously, again, much like Christmas, over the new year things happen and people are moving around, and it can be quite difficult to find the time. And of course, very early on into January, I'll be back at university again, and I'll need to sort of find the time to do something completely different to what I'm used to. Of course, I have got into quite a decent routine and workflow with regards to posting up content on my channel in the way that I do currently. And obviously it's quite a different matter when you try and bring a whole new type of video, which requires a whole lot more in terms of different video clips and different sound files and all of that sort of thing to make like a top 10 in the way that that would be. So hopefully I will. I do intend to make something like that happen, because it's something completely different, and like I said, it's the only chance that we'll really get to do something like that. The end of the decade doesn't come around all that often, after all. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Obviously a little bit of a ramble, as most of my channel updates are, but just a little thing, obviously, because like I said, I really doubt that people will have, a lot of people probably won't have the time on Christmas Day to watch like a full replay. Even though I do have a few recorded and ready to go, I think we can wait until after Christmas before we start posting them up. So yeah, I think that's all I needed to say, except for the most important message of this video, of course, which is I hope everyone who is watching this has a very Merry Christmas and also has a Happy New Year, and let's hope that the next year coming is also a productive one with regards to the games that I've been covering as well, because I'm sure that Silmarillion and Reforged can only get better in the coming months as we look ahead to their future development. So yeah, like I said, hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas and has a Happy New Year.